I'm Lindsay.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Jolissa.
Tell me everything.
Am I Sam and Lindsay on the mic? Tell me everything tonight. Oh! From the books to the screen and everything in between. If it's trending, we know. What's the tea? Let's go. It's a 306 flow. Tell me everything you know. Bring it to the show. Tell me what you heard. Yeah, every single word. Tell me everything. Tell me everything. Oh!
There have been a lot of things in the news lately that have made me go, what in the AI or what in the social media is going on? And I know we promised no politics, and some of you might see this as a political conversation, but I think this is more of a news and information you can use kind of conversation. Our guest today is Jolissa Simon. She's a registered psychologist who splits her time between Saskatchewan and Sweden and is currently in Saskatoon, correct?
Yes, I split my work even further, I guess I should say this, between Saskatoon and the Treaty 4 territory with the First Nations in the south. Yeah.
She married a man from Sweden. If you're wondering, how does a woman end up splitting her time in Sweden? Anyways, the reason I wanted Jolissa to come on is because I know that you are passionate about things that affect kids and their mental health, because that is primarily who you work with. And we have heard a lot lately about the conversations around social media and kids using social media, and then AI and chatbots and the conversations that people are having. And we say this with the full disclosure that, yes, our theme song was created using AI. It is what it is. We're low budget, okay? I don't have money to pay a musician, and Lindsay's good at the music mixing. So that's how that was.
Hold on. There wasn't I mixed zero music. I wrote down lyrics and then I thought, can Sam or I sing? No. But there's so many tools that are appearing, at least within our world as professionals, as people who are working in the professional world. And Sam was the one who came to me and said, we know what this is like as it enters into the workforce and things like that, but there's so many different aspects for the tiny humans. We're talking about the kids, the teenagers, things like that. And Jolissa, you're the perfect person to talk to about these types of things, as you see this day to day. I guess one of my first questions for you is, when you're working with kids and the topic of social media comes up, what are some of the common themes that you hear kids mention with social media? Is there specific social media that they're using a lot? Are there ones that are, would you say, better or worse than another? I don't even know if that's a thing. And then also, I'm going to drop video games in there because I know that video game servers can be batshit sometimes.
Yeah, between Discord and even just talking in Fortnite, that's a thing. And it can be good and bad too, Jolissa. We're not here just to crap all over things. We're trying to understand.
Yeah. So I can give you the deets on all of the above. I am a child psychologist. So the ages I work with range from 4 to, and I know 22 is technically an adult, but sometimes based on cognitive ability, I can work with that demographic, arguably. Now, there is good and bad social media apps. But overall, if you want the actual hard facts, the research is showing that it is not good, whatsoever, in terms of impacts on mental health. And I don't think that's a surprise. I was just at a mental health summit in Banff, and I had the most interesting and up-to-date presentation on social media, and it was all Canadian data. And it was really affirming for me because anecdotally, when I get teens in, I get to hear, how the apps configure into their lives, in terms of social situations, mental health, all of the above, right? And also, then with the younger demographic I'm working with, there's disclosures that I get that are quite alarming and quite frightening. So when you talked about, discord on video games, the disclosures that I get from younger kids, even with all of the parental controls on, are really terrifying. So, I know I'm going to bring this up, and I know it caused like a political change in the province when we heard about some sex education that occurred in Lumsden, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
And if we're being honest, the most common age of exposure for pornography is 8 years old
Whoa.
online.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can tell you within my practice, for sure, 100%. Yeah.
And how are they getting exposed to that? Is it through phones? Is it on a computer? Like, what's the mode of exposure? How are they finding it, or is it being shown to them? Like, how does this
Mm.
happen?
So both. And like, so for instance, like I'll give like a particular case. I was counseling like a 10-year-old, and they were talking about, and it's like parents doing all things, right? So she said to me, her parents, she doesn't want Facebook because that's old people. Okay. She's not quite old enough for Instagram, so she's not allowed on it. TikTok was not allowed, but she was allowed to be on YouTube, and they had the parental control on YouTube, and she didn't want to be on YouTube Kids because that was too young for her. Okay. But with the feed that she was getting, some of the suggested stuff that came up, and some of the things that she came across were that led down, towards like pornography essentially, or like a whole world of exploring kind of that avenue discreetly within like the YouTube parameters, right?
Mm.
So the algorithms, or I mean, sex is something that people click on. Pornography is something that people click on. And, we need to address it. In my opinion, we need to address it quite young because it is going to come up, especially if your kids are on any form of phone apps. Discourse, oh my gosh, that is a whole other world. And I'm sure everybody has seen something in the news about Roblox
Yep.
and the mental health summit that I was at with the social media presentation. From people that are doing research in the field, Roblox was called a pedophile landscape by the presenter.
No. Okay,
Sorry,
so say more
pedophile
about, but tell me,
landscape.
okay, but say more about that, because I think that there's a lot of people who literally buy gift cards for Roblox for their nieces and nephews for Christmas,
Yeah,
and they think that it's this harmless thing. And if my understanding is correct, it's games within games. It's not just one
yeah.
game, and there's chat
Mm.
rooms. But other than that, I don't really know anything about it. So why is it a pedophile hellscape? Why those words?
Yeah, so um a lot to it. So here's the thing. I don't want to demonize video games or, like computer games, however, whatever platform you want to access the games on. There is research that has proven how incredible it is for certain like fluid reasoning skills, problem solving, all of the above that it teaches. The part Roblox is that anybody can essentially become a creator and create a game within this world. So it's a huge,
Oh,
yes. So then you get people creating certain worlds with certain themes that are not kid friendly, extremely violent, and kids can just enter it, especially it is extremely hard for the platform, so to speak, or the creators or people who are monitoring it to keep up with the constant creation, and now they've put in, there's parental guide. Of course, like you can click, that you're old enough to access certain content if it's there. Then you have, the chat rooms, then you have the Discord, like chatting online, and there's been a lot of grooming, and there's been like certain lingo where people can get around, like typing and insinuating and inviting into their worlds or to their spaces or giving out information. A lot of grooming essentially is taking place. So when you think about like us growing up and we had ratings on movies or TV shows, and um, you guys have both worked in the news. When something extremely horrific or traumatizing, if there's certain images, you can't get your head. You know what I mean? And what is happening is kids come across like reading content like this, or they see it visually, whether it's like on Roblox or TikTok or YouTube, and they can't get it out of their head, and they're not discussing it with their parents for fear of repercussions, right? Or fear of a loss of access to a game that they love, or to social media where they connect with their friends, right? And then quite often, then we discuss it within counseling if the child has counseling to it, right? But then if they're not, then they're stuck with that and they're dealing with that. And it's showing, like the research is showing that it impacts the centers of the brain. So, when you see people being really mean on the internet, when there's an increase in bullying, all of the things that we are seeing, mental health is at an all-time high, anxiety and depression in young kids and teens. And we would really naive to think that it's not correlated or, it's not caused.
Okay. So, we've talked about the heavy effects with what we're seeing and, obviously the terrifying concept of the fact that kids can get access to these things. I was talking to Sam about this earlier. As millennials, we grew up with social media. We grew up with this technology, ASL. I mean, we entered chat rooms.
Oh,
you know,
ICQ.
that kind of stuff. We used MSN Messenger. We had our friends and things like that. And I said to Sam, I'd love to think that we know how to navigate social media or all of these different things that exist out there because we grew up with them. But the reality is that things are changing a lot. And the fact that you just mentioned that there was a child on YouTube who was able to access material that no child should have been able to access on YouTube. What can parents do if there are any recommendations out there to protect their kids from these things? Like, what are the steps that they would need to take in regards to just the social media side of things to ensure that they know their kids aren't going to be exposed? I hate to say this, at least as much, because I think no matter what, there's going to be an iota of exposure, whether we like it or not, if they have access to the internet. But what can we do to protect kids?
Short of putting them in a bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and we can't. You know what I mean? Like the answer is that, like, it's scary, but it's like it's removing the taboo around these discussions, right? Around like certain content that they might see, talking about why it might be harmful. When we talk about like pornography addiction is increasing, right? And we talk about, I mean, we all there that I saw across all of my social media, the recent CNN headline about men having access, or I shouldn't say men, but, people having access to a chat room about how to sexually assault their wives or girlfriends. So it's there regardless. And that's the thing. So it's having the discussion and having the healthy discussion. Like if I come across this and like, what do we do within our house? It is the same, as the discussions our parents would have or should have had around tobacco or drugs or alcohol, because this is something that really impacts our brain development. As somebody who is huge into the neurology, of like all the neurochemicals and helping regulate them for health, and with the development of like white matter and the frontal lobe and those, you have to restrict this to some extent, right? And I use, when I'm talking with parents about it, I can tell when I've been on the computer too much. I can tell when I've been on my cell phone too much, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I can tell when like my mood changes, my regulation is different, especially it really depends on the content like I'm consuming, right? And I have like the metacognition, the wherewithal to place that, kids don't. And that expectation to give them a fully loaded cell phone and unrestricted access to the the world wide web or socials, as the younger demographic likes to call it, it's something that we need to be very careful with. The same way somebody can handle a few drinks in an evening and somebody else cannot. It's different neurology, right? So I can already tell, like I have two kids, okay? And my oldest needs quite a bit less, the impacts of screen time on her. If there's some TV in her life or a lot of TV, there's a drastic difference. And my youngest could care less most of the time if there is TV or not, right? So again, really dependent. Like, what can parents do? Be preventative, okay? Because it's going to happen, okay? Australia has now banned social media for kids 16 years and younger. And quite honestly, so we had the person who I thought was fantastic to hear from. So I don't want to like say that this is my my information. I'm repeating from Dr. Tracy Valancourt. She is a professor at the University of Ottawa, and she's on the Canadian Research Chair in Youth Mental Health and Violence Prevention. And there's a prediction she predicts, like based off of the data, we're going to follow in the footsteps. And she equates social media and the way that it's marketed to like extremely similar patterns of big tobacco. So, like big tobacco rolled out, there was addiction, and then came like, the health restrictions.
And the lobbyists.
Yeah.
Think of that. Like, think of all of the hearings we're seeing in the United States and the accountability that they're trying to put on these social media. When you say big tobacco, these similarities are freaky.
Well, they are, and I saw, like, speaking of social media, I think I saw something on Instagram. I was joking with some friends about how we had a smoking section outside of our high school for the high school students. And that was
Right?
like below my kids' minds. Like, you can't even think of that happening, right? But I think social media is going to progress that just because, of the impacts. There is like 95% of teens in Canada use social media across, like, worldwide. And the impact, like if you do a meta-analysis of the research, the impacts are small, but they're everywhere, like everywhere. So if it's everywhere, even if it's a small impact on mental health, that's still a problem, right? So you'll have people argue that it's not really like impacting, but it is, so because it's a pandemic, it really is. Like, the social media features perfectly align with brain development, and it hits the teenage brain in the worst way. Your prefrontal cortex is not developed until age 25. Okay. And that's like your attention span.
25? I didn't know that.
Yes. And some studies recently are showing even later. So, if you've ever made some really bad decisions before then, you can blame it on your lack of impulse control.
So this explains why when I hit like 26, I said, I'm going to stop clubbing, because it just, beyond your body finally hurting.
Yes.
It's so, but it's bizarre too, because like, I joke all the time with like my nephews or any of like, you know, my niece things like that. I'm like, go outside and touch grass. Like put down your phone, go touch grass. Like you need to stop. And very similar to what you said, Jolissa, like it depends on the kid. Some of them, like yours, you said some of them they're just like totally obsessed with their phone. And other one couldn't be bothered because they'd rather go and do this or that. But that being said, I was also noticing that you mentioned that it's your older one who's having that visual thing and the younger one not. And that's what I notice is maybe it's just because their friends talk about these things they saw on social media, whereas the younger ones are like, well, I still like playing with my Legos. I don't know. I don't have kids, so I'm trying to think of something that I would have
Yeah.
played with was Legos.
Yeah, no, so when I say screen time, it's movie time. My oldest is 5 years old. So
Okay.
um
Okay.
and honestly, I've gone like I've because of the impacts that I have seen, um so I do a lot of assessment and diagnosing and I do counseling, okay? So because of the impacts that I've seen of screen time, I'm almost like my 5-year-old doesn't know what an iPad is.
Oh my
Um
God, I love that for you.
yeah, and you're talking like and I'll tell you like the impacts that I have seen personally. We travel to Sweden as we have our family there and
Oh,
like it's a 7 like day of traveling, no iPads. No.
books?
What do you
Yes.
do, Jalissa? What do you do? I don't know. I don't like I know the answer to that because I
What we
can get
did.
through a flight without watching screens or like road
Yeah.
trips. That's my
Yeah.
childhood. But what do you
Mhm.
do when these kids are surrounded by other kids on planes with iPads?
Mm.
No. So I mean it's the rule and it's always kind of just been a rule. And I'm at the point where it's like I do need to do an introduction of tech because I don't believe like abstinence is the best policy. We need to teach the regulation skills in there. But I my oldest has been like painting and drawing with me since like 2 or 3 years old. So coloring is a big thing. Yes, we do movies like because they do have the movie option on the plane, but the difference is, and this is something I think everybody talks about. It's not just the amount of screen time; it's the quality of the screen time,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
So when you are having a movie that has certain content that's a little bit slower, like Disney classics, for instance, like and you can follow a storyline, okay? So like the brain is not getting an instant dopamine hit from short reels. Do you know what I mean? Or like the video game, if even if it's a tablet game, like the quick hit of the dopamine. So then you're wiring the brain essentially to have a very short attention span, especially in kids. The brain development is extremely rapid up till to age 3, and then like even more so up till 8 years. I don't even do like I tend not to unless it's exceptions, but do cognitive assessment on kids under 8 years of age because of the changes in the brain. Okay. So when you give, constant tech, you rewire the frontal lobe for shorter attention span, more difficulty with emotional regulation, all of the above. So, but funny on a funny note, I had bought a whack load of tattoos from the dollar store, and my 3-year-old daughter was covered. She had legs and arm sleeves, and everybody in the airplane also had tattoo sleeves.
Perfect.
They grew up with it.
That's
So
great.
yeah, I mean, and is it fun or was it fun? No. And I'm not parent of the year. I'll tell you that. Like I'm not. like there was some swears there. It's sweaty. You do what you can, right? But yeah, reading, coloring, tattoos, games, right? And of course, snacks, sleep, um, walking up and down the aisle when you're allowed to. And I get comments all the time about how she's such a good traveler. And it is like it's we built it. We built it that way, you know, and zero judgment, because tech can be fantastic for teaching languages. You know, it can be fantastic for teaching like things that you wouldn't even bring up, you know, as parents. But I think it's the quality as opposed to, it's not just the quantity of the time, is recommendation there.
Can you tell me how this would come up in counseling? Because I know in our household, whenever we start having a conversation about social media, the tiny human gets very defensive. And I know when you talk about how they don't want to talk about it with their parents because of fear of repercussions or loss of access. How does it, so I don't know that I'm asking how to have those conversations with your kids, because I think if you're trying, that's great. But how does it come up in counseling? Like, how are these kids saying to you, hey, by the way, I stumbled across porn on YouTube? Kids at 8 and 10 years old don't even have the words for that. Or do they have the
Yeah.
words for that now?
So they don't know what it is, like most of the time, but some of them do. Okay. And, you know, of course, because kids are curious, you know, they're sponges. Okay. And when you're talking about social media, okay, especially when you're getting into like adolescents and teens now, when you begin that discussion or talk about like cutting back, it's an attack on their social life. Okay. Like that is very much like, you know, you're talking about going out till clubbing till 26, you know, that has changed. Yes, fist bump. That has changed completely, right? It's changed completely. So it's a different world, right? So it's really interesting in how kids connect. It is via socials. I mean, if you're going to sit down at a dinner, you might have two teens who will text each other from across the table, right? um but but how it gets brought up in counseling and how it's been brought up is like they'll say that they're feeling really bad. Like if I go back to the case that I first mentioned, she was like, I feel really bad. And like I saw something bad. And so then you ask, like, okay, like what do you want to talk about it? What did you see? And then they're like, you're not going to tell my mom. Like, no, we've been over this. This, you're protected by
Yeah.
confidentiality. Unless you are in harm or in harm's way, or you are going to harm someone, or, you know, um, the grounds of breaking confidentiality. And then they'll say like, and they'll describe, you know, what they saw to me, you know, or like, I had to report something on Roblox, because a man said this to me online. So I reported him like right away, you know, and even though they've done the right thing, okay, so that was actually the same client of mine, even though they've done the right thing, it's just like a relief to discuss it like within the counseling context. And it wasn't something that they wanted to share with parents because there's the fear of, you know, losing access to Roblox. And I know some kids who have created like amazing things, or, you know, like it's not all bad. That's the thing.
Mhm.
There's some really incredible aspects about it. And believe it or not, I used to be a huge gamer growing up. Huge, and all throughout university. So there's parts of games, like video gaming, that I absolutely love. And like, yeah. So I get it, but there's just the danger aspect of it, now, because of how content is not filtered.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned gaming, and Sam, I know that you still play with your games and
I'm
things
playing
like
a
that.
Pokemon game, so my game is
Yeah.
pretty sheltered.
But I
But
mean,
yes,
yeah.
we both, you and I both play video games, and so does my
Yeah.
husband.
And that's the thing too, is, you know, my husband and I, we play video games, and I mean, we wound up buying new PlayStations together during the pandemic because we're like, what are we going to do with ourselves? Because like we love each other, but also we want to talk to other people and do things with them. And that
Yes.
obviously during the pandemic, what could you do beyond sign online? And I think perhaps, and you can tell me I'm completely off base on this, but I think that pandemic really expanded the base for people to be able to have those social connections because we weren't allowed to see each other. So we log online instead. And perhaps maybe we were a bit too, horse blinders on when it came to the thinking, okay, well, like, I remember video gaming back in my day because, I was a kid on, God, like Halo and things like that years and years ago and stuff like that. And I had people swearing at me and things along those lines. But now, I mean, it's far superior. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is, it's not fair, and it's like, I don't want to shame anybody who has been, I mean, 95% of teens, like 13 to 17-year-olds have phone. 30% of 5 to 7-year-olds are on TikTok, and yeah, and that's Canadian
What?
stat. Yeah, yep, yep.
5 to 7 years old?
Yes, yeah.
Hold on. Are they posting videos or are they just?
No idea. The stat is 30% of 5 to 7-year-olds are on TikTok. So like whether using it,
Or just using mom and dad's account, like they get on and they scroll. Much like
yeah.
when we were,
Yeah.
you just hand your phone to your kid with a YouTube account because at dinner, there was like when my friends were younger, that was often a like, here's my phone. We're trying to have a conversation type thing. And no judgment. It was just like a new and novel tool.
Yeah.
But what has it done to our social skills?
Okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, of course it has impacted. Like you brought up, the COVID-19, so like Dr. Tracy Valancourt, she predicted with everything shut down that eating disorders would skyrocket, and they did. And then what coincided with that, apart from like the impacts on falling behind in education for kids, there was an increase in the online world use, and then tech all around it, right? I mean, even like our services like Netflix, they started churning out,
Tiger
before it was
King.
yeah, it took forever to get like a new movie on there or a new series. And now I feel like I can't even keep up, right?
They just released it
So
all.
yeah, I mean, Tiger King really set the stage. But social media has taken full control over attention economics. And when you don't have a developed prefrontal cortex, you do not stand a chance for not being addicted. You don't, the teenage brain is how is it phrased? So it's a low effort, high reward, so and what is the lowest effort dopamine hit you can get? Like a 1 minute, TikTok reel. And like I have TikTok, I have Instagram, okay? And I love them. I mean, I connect all the time with people about books on my Instagram. But like the TikTok algorithm is the one that it has a distinct algorithm that pushes tailored algorithms. Like they tailor it specifically, even more so than any other social platform. And like I'll disclose some stuff about my TikTok algorithm, for instance. So for the most part, I wouldn't be embarrassed if somebody was like on my TikTok. But one time, and this, I have a 1.5-year-old, so it wasn't too long ago that I was like in the postpartum period, and I had came across a reel about like, and a trigger warning about like a child death. And then I ended up watching that until the end. And like that was not good for postpartum anxiety in the least bit. And then all of a sudden, every once in a while on my feed, I would get
no.
so even clicking, I don't want to see this content, like reporting the content, I still get stuff like that pop up on my algorithm despite, so what's really popular on TikTok reels right now is skinny talk, eating disorders. Okay. With, Ozempic and everything else in that aspect, that is really becoming a thing. Um, and well, we know that, but in terms of like counseling and body image, the 90s heroin chic look,
Yeah.
like, yes, yes. And so that, you know, the there's a huge, yeah, part of TikTok that is harvesting that,
Can I
as
give you
well.
some levity to your TikTok
Yeah.
story? Because this to this day makes me laugh. So I think I signed up for TikTok during the pandemic, kind of like everybody else did, but it must have just factored my gender and my age in. And there was a time where you'd open TikTok and the music would start playing right away, right? Like whatever it was in the beginning, there was automatic sound. And for some reason, I was on Magic Mike TikTok. So every time I opened TikTok, it was like some guys naked in a club dancing to Pony. So every time I'd open my phone, that opening like, and if I'd open it at work, it was like blare into the newsroom of like Pony by Genuine starts playing, where I'm really just like looking to see what's trending. But no, on my TikTok algorithm, because I was like a late 30s female, they're like, you must want to see naked strippers in Vegas. And like it took forever to get off that algorithm because you have to watch other things to train your algorithm. So yeah, to give you some levity, it can be bad, but it can also be grossly embarrassing at your very serious workplace of a news organization.
Yes, yes. I can fully understand that.
Well, let's face it. The most embarrassing thing that you can do right now across the board, okay, is if you had your phone full volume at home and you were watching a video and then you forget about it, click it because you had to go somewhere, you head out the door, you're in public, and you go to open up or unlock your phone, and the first thing that it does is bam, bam, and it just blasts it, and you're like, cool, that's great. Nobody paid attention to that. It's fine.
But we went from a time where we paid for ringtones to a time where everything's on silent. Like culture around phones has changed so much. Do you remember the song Minuteman by Missy Elliott? That was my best friend's ringtone on her phone. And in an art history final, she forgot to silence her phone. So she's in an auditorium at the University of Regina, and her phone starts doing the like, me, 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 me. She kicked her bag at her friend sitting next to her so she wouldn't have to account for the ringing phone. Instead of silencing, she just let it play out.
You know
in
what?
An art history final.
It's happening.
But yeah, culture around phones has changed so much. Like I would never pay for a ringtone now.
No. And that's the thing. I misplaced my phone so many times in a day. And then people are like, should I call it? And I'm like, that will do nothing.
Because you left it on silent. You know better. You left it on silent. Now, one of the other things that we had touched on earlier, speaking of music, our theme song is done by AI. When I first discovered AI Music Maker, I was like, this is the most fun thing ever because I do not have, listen, I did 2 years of band camp playing the clarinet, giggity, but girl, I was good. I was a good, we won medals.
Everyone starts that way, where you're just like, you wish you could put your kid in a soundproof booth until they have skills because it's so good for them, but it is so painful.
Yeah.
So painful.
But I doth not have a musical bone in my body. It is not
me
happening. Either. So I turned to AI. And you know what? A lot of AI tools, specifically like even at my workplace, we have a seminar that's coming up at my own workplace right now to talk a little bit more about AI and how they integrate it into the company for certain aspects of things. But it also exists with kids. And I mean, the different tools that are available, I mean, Samsung in particular, because I'm an Android girl, they integrated.
I am who I am.
We're not going to get into the cult of phones right now. But what they did was they recently released, full AI capabilities on all the phones. Originally, they were doing it just for the S26. Now they're releasing it for all the previous Samsung versions. Mm-hmm. And this is highly integrated AI that like knows everything that you're doing on your phone. Me, don't care. You know what? I know better than to just ticket, 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 ticket. But let's face it, I have a couple glasses of wine. Maybe I do start ticket, ticket and buying the things that it keeps suggesting to me. But kids don't have that kind of control. You know, they're a little bit more unhinged, and you know, sorry, I'm not shaming any kids out there, honestly, but it's just like, you mentioned this earlier. What is the lowest effort with the highest reward that we can put out there? And
Online
AI
shopping.
is it. Yeah.
AI and online shopping, when you say that, you combine those two together, oh my goodness.
My phone's listening to that right now, so it's shh, it's fine. But tell us how it's affecting kids. How is AI affecting the different ages nowadays, and like,
and how's it different from like little to like through teens? Because it has to be different from the tiny tots to the, you know, the high school or university students.
So, I mean, AI is relatively new. Like when we talk about like the closest thing that we have like studies on for impacts in terms of mental health, it's a lot of socials. There is information coming out though, and I'm sure you've seen in like news headlines where people are quite often turning to therapy from like chat GPT. Okay. And I'm not saying this because I have dice in the game as a therapist, but you know, there have been cases now brought up in terms of, you know, suicides and the wrong type of mental health advice. And where we're seeing it is turning to chat GPT, and then what ChatGPT does is just reaffirm or confirm what you're already going through. Essentially, it caters to telling you what you want to hear. And so if you think that you're depressed, even though and I don't know, like I went through a whole emo phase. Like I loved um like Avenged Sevenfold and
My Chemical Romance.
Yes, yes,
Girl.
yes. Dashboard Confessional, Blink 182.
We all did. That's a millennial thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, you know, and it's because I saw another joke. It was like white men need to get back in their garages and make music. Like,
They do.
They can't
They
fit in
do.
those skinny pants anymore. What are you talking about?
yes, they do. But in terms of that, like if you think of those very big feelings, and that's where like you have this like this disconnect between adults and kids. They're experiencing these feelings for the very first time, right? So it's like, you know, what is this? Is this anxiety, when it's just a natural anxious reaction to a situation, right? But we have almost gone like swung the full other way in terms of mental health, where we pathologize instead of just like, you know, I had a panic attack. You know, I get that I had a panic attack, and I'm like, okay, what did that feel like? What did that look like? And it's just regular panic, you know, not the actual clinical panic attack. And of course, these things are happening. But anyway, so with ChatGPT, like what I have had is I've had people come in who have self-diagnosed, you know, and they're like, I
That's what I
already
was
have.
wondering.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's like, okay, you know, that may very well be the case. And other times it is not, right? So it's like it can be extremely informative, right? But at the same time, what it's showing is in terms of counseling, it is not really doing a good job. AI needs to needs to develop further in terms of that.
You need a human to be a counselor, Jolissa? Say it is not so. You are not a replaceable field. We have these conversations about the humanities, right? Like people are like, oh, is AI going to replace news? There's nuance in so many things. There's emotion in so many things. AI can't give you empathy. It can give you artificial empathy, but if you push it hard enough, it does that hallucination thing that they talk about where it's called hallucinating. It says it hallucinates, and that's when it makes mistakes because it's giving you bad information. Like have you never heard that before, Lindsay?
It's just no, I haven't. But I'm also just like, this is like such a sidebar. I'm so sorry, but all I'm thinking is like, whenever I'm like going on a magical joyride or something like that, and like I know what I'm seeing. I'm like, I could just picture like chatting with my chat GPT until it totally just trips balls and like mushrooms and little people start popping up. So that's where my brain goes, but I still have an imagination up here. It was the, one of the things that I really wanted to ask you about, Jalissa, was about that, like, that self-diagnosis, because I feel, you know, when I knew that there was something going on in my life and I was like, do I have a problem? Maybe. I'm gonna stuff that down a little bit further and deal with that another day. That's how we dealt with it for a long time. Um, but eventually we finally realized, okay, let's go talk to a therapist. Let's go talk to someone. Let's talk to a psychologist. Let's see what's going on out there and what we're dealing with. Depression, anxiety, those types of stresses and things like that. All I hear, and like sorry, not all, but enough times to the point where I'm like,
You heard a lot.
have you spoken to a professional about this? And they're like, well, it's a yes or no question for me. It's not, well, it's, if you have gone to a professional who can properly identify what's going on, then we'll talk. So I have a really hard time with these self-diagnoses, and I apologize if anyone else is listening and they're like, well, that's not fair. You just did well. You didn't say yes or no. You said, well, and that's the hill that I die on, is I say, if you haven't spoken to a professional, I have a hard time saying yes to you.
No, and I agree with you, like, to an extent, for sure. Like, people can look up, like, I mean, we have information readily available, but of course there is nuance to it. And it's really interesting too, like with social media, like I'll see like psychology says, and it's like, no, psychology doesn't say that, like, because you have this and this, or you have ADHD. Like, nobody, no, and nowhere, not even Freud said that, and he was giving out cocaine as a prescription. So like,
Party on, man.
yeah. And what's really interesting, like what we're seeing too, like this blew me away. So like tic disorders, they are stereotypically, and within the health field in the research, they hit the male population the most significantly. And so during and like post kind of in that the pandemic era, there was a huge increase in seeing like young girls and women with tics coming in. And they were like self-harming tics. They were like really aggressive and big. And what the medical field could only chalk it up to was that it was social contagion. Like, you were seeing like people, like these young girls and women recording tics, like harming themselves, or like in class, like these big tics they couldn't control. Yeah, or Tourette's. And yeah, so there's like the social contagion aspect of like, you are imitating what you are seeing, right? And this is across the field in psychology. And for sure, I feel like I've come across like some of that anecdotally as well. And it makes sense. Like, we're talking about going through the emo phase. Like, you emulate things, you're trying out things, you're curious as a kid or a teen, right? Like, you're finding your identity. Like, well, until your like 20s, right? So when you have exposure to this stuff nonstop, like, why wouldn't you experiment? And like the other stat that's wild, like once a week, and you guys, because with the news, once a week teens are exposed to a conspiracy theory, and they have like a hard time telling the difference, and we only had to deal with that like at Thanksgiving with our weird uncle, like once a year, and now they have to deal with it weekly, right? Like, so it's, you have to give this generation so much grace, because they're navigating like radicalization, and like body image and mental health and, well, finding themselves. It's a lot, and I don't envy them.
So how do we know if, I mean, I could say, how do we know if we as adults have a problem with these things? But how do we know if a young person or a young adult in our life has a problem? What are some things that we would say, okay, you need, signs like that you might need to cut back, or that you need to seriously think about your device use, your social media use, your AI use? Like, what are some things that you're like, someone comes in and starts talking and we're like, I know exactly what your problem is, but it's like they go through withdrawal. And I know they go through withdrawal because I've witnessed a teenager go through technology withdrawal, and it's not awesome.
Yeah.
They're kind of mean.
No, adults do too. So, I mean, if I'm seeing someone and regardless if it's cell phone usage, social usage, and I can identify the problem, I can tell them that, right out. So,
Okay.
So what would you say? What would you,
well, you lead a person to their own conclusion. Like if you have somebody who comes in with a relationship problem and it's very obvious the partner is the problem, you don't say, I can't say, like, in the therapeutic setting, dump him, at the like, especially
even though you
when,
want to.
oh, for sure. Like, like, and, it's asking questions around it, right? And like, there's the defensive phase first, regardless of, if it's tech, whatever the problem is, there's defense around the problem. It's guarding, right? Um, and it's a natural human thing to do. You're vulnerable, right? So you lead them to the conclusion. If it's younger kids, specifically, like if I'm doing therapy and there's an ADHD diagnosis, that's something that, I'm laughing at your husband, Sam.
He tries so hard to be like subtle, but he's also wearing his most obnoxious hoodie. So anyways, continue.
So
It's
kid.
all good. Yeah. Um, but no, like if it is kids, like, and so ADHD at the heart of it is an executive functioning disorder. Okay. So you already have trouble with impulsivity. You already have more dopamine seeking naturally, right? And you have low motivation, because like the nucleus accumbens, I like using that word, is not the same motivation as somebody who's neurotypical. So if you have stuff like that, like, of course you want to say, like, we need to limit tech, or we need to, like, and hear the quality of which tech you're using. Okay. So, like, of course you can give that recommendation in that way, right? But yeah, I've had situations where I've had teens in, and they've come in, and they always use the term, I have a Facebook mom. They have the phrase, I have a Facebook mom.
What does
Ow.
that mean?
From what I can tell, it has like a few meanings. Okay. They use it, and it's funny and it's accurate, for a mom who posts a lot on Facebook, and a mom who maybe gets a lot of information via Facebook. So, like, they're like, my mom sent me from Facebook these stats about social media, and it's like, okay, like, and it's not fact checked, and they are doing their homework. They're like, AI says that this is not a fact check. So
This is
it's
why
like,
we need news to come back on Canadian social media, because ever
100%.
since then, it is the Wild West out
Yeah.
there.
it really is. It really,
Yes.
really is. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
I've been holding on to that, like, I've been clutching onto that in the back of my mind for so much of this, and you bringing it up, Sam, just like, I think the downfall of Facebook/Meta to me was the no
Thought you were gonna-
Canadian news outlets.
I thought you were going to say civilization.
No.
Me too.
The downfall of civilization will happen many years from now. I remain optimist with a
Tomorrow.
glass is full kind of thing. Everything's great. My life is fantastic. The future is now and forevermore. Like, I know I seem like a negative and pessimistic person, but the reality is that, you know, I look at it this way. The pandemic is one of those things where it sucked. Like, all we saw drilled into our faces were people saying conspiracy theories, like it's a conspiracy and the government did this and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. Collectively, as a whole, it is the first time in my life that I can say I was proud of the human race for what we did. Because we all sat down and said, okay.
The majority.
Thank God the majority did this. Thank the sweet baby koala bears. The majority said, okay, we're going to do our best. We're going to do everything we can. And collectively, with a scientific mind from across the globe, they came together and said, let's work together to come up with a solution to this extremely serious problem that could end civilization as we know it. And we did it. And I was like, that gave me eternal optimism for the human race. Because if we can nail that down, we can fix other things. I am concerned with the fact that it's going to hit like the absolute fucking precipice of like doomsday clock shit.
You had me. Oh,
time,
Lindsay, you
gotta
were on
stay
such a
optimistic.
trajectory. You had me. You were like,
Yeah.
that was the best pep talk. And then you said doomsday. You took me
Listen.
up and you dropped me down.
But see, again, that's where my black and white mind comes in. There's a yes and a no. And I'm not a gray area girl. So that's where I remain like, there's always going to be a yes girl. And I'm like, yeah. And then there's always going to be like, doomsday can come. We need to know that that is an option as well.
Where I live happily in the gray.
But, you know, I just think that when it comes to news and stuff like that, confirmation bias is everything. And I'm worried that AI is offering that confirmation bias to our youth. And
For sure it is.
I know it offers me what I want when I'm like, can you identify all the key messages from something or whatever? And they're like, sure, here you go. These are what I think the key messages are. And then I read through it and I'm like, maybe not.
I actually like have an interesting because I am a mom who is on Facebook. And like addition to that, I went like the opposite way. I started clicking on posts that didn't align with my like morals or political beliefs. And I started clicking because I wanted to see like, you know,
you were a rubbernecker.
Yeah, I'm really curious, you know.
The car crash.
Yeah, like I can really read into like what people are replying, like people's thoughts, like because I'm so curious about thought patterns in terms of this, to the point that my Facebook gives me more posts that like are completely different from my political views. Because I'm just like I'm trying to take the temperature about what is out there, but for sure the algorithm feeds that. And that's what I mean, like the confirmation bias, you know. And you swing back to the mental health field and diagnosing, or somebody trying to receive counseling from AI, like it's just going to confirm, right? It's just going to feed you what you want to know. It's going to reaffirm you, you know. And I've had like challenging conversations with Chat GPT, where I know like something, like it shouldn't be telling me something that it's telling me, and I'll say, but don't you think that this? And it will say, yes, but don't go down that route, da 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 da, you know. So I've tried to, yes, like it's trying to keep me like in a positive space, as opposed to exploring the emotion and like the root of it and where it's coming from. Because, you know, I'm like, okay, like, well, let's see this, like what does Chat GPT think about this, you know? So yeah, really, and it's confirming it for youth. And when you think about them not being able to discern the difference, and then, you know, you have the other spectrum, and the millennials are sandwiched in the middle. I get the parents of the teens and the kids that I'm seeing. And then they also talk about the tech addiction with their parents, like with the
Ah,
boomer generation. Yeah, and how they're feeling like really lost, because they're trying to deal with it on the teens end, and then they're trying to deal with it on their parents end.
I was going to
So
ask you, so as grown-ups, and I know you're not a parenting expert, but as
yeah.
as the grown-ups in the room, what should we consider as model behavior? Like, what should we be doing as that middle generation that's modeling for younger kids and explaining to the boomers how these things work? What do you think is acceptable social media and AI use for your brain to stay a happy functioning brain instead of like a mushy bottle of ramen?
rot.
Yeah, so again, really individual, and it's kind of like any health matter within your household, okay? So if you expect your teen to have, only certain hours or certain areas of the house to be using tech, certain circumstances, like then you need to model that as an adult, right? You can't say like socially, the social world of a teen is the most important thing. And of course, like social connection is the most humanly, like the most important thing for humanity and for
Yeah.
humans, right?
Well, humans.
So yeah, exactly. It's what drives us. I mean, social media is all about connection. It's just about doing it in a healthy way, right? So there's like online literacy to it. There's social media literacy to it, and there's some fantastic books and resources around it. But like my number one recommendation for it is model the behavior to your kids that you want to see. So if there's no cell phone use at the dinner table, that's that. Keeping the phone out of the bedroom. Like, I mean, that would be the biggest thing that I could tell everybody for their teen kids. If like there was it's huge impact on sleep. If you go into any education stats recently, attendance, like truancy, like it's dropping significantly. And then they're doing studies that kids are too tired to come to school because of cell phone and gaming late into the night, right? And I'll get a kiddo referred for an assessment, and it's like he's not attending. And like he's playing. What do you do for fun? My game. That's a response. And in the years I've been doing it, it's like 13 years. It's changed from Call of Duty to like Minecraft.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be and like everybody loves a late night gaming session. Okay. It's fun because you're talking to your friends, it's late at night. But keeping that type of stuff, like you are giving your kid, and if there's no parental blocks, if there's no monitoring of screen time, you give that to them before bed. They have access to any and everything online right before they go to sleep. And like sleep is when your brain regenerates. It consolidates information from the day. So that would be like my number one thing is and the studies show even having the phone beside your head, even if you're not using it, you're subconsciously picking up on it and all the tasks that you need to do.
Got it.
And picking it
Yeah.
up first thing in the morning, it raises cortisol levels. Like, so even giving yourself like 30 minutes in the morning, if you can, right? But yeah.
Thanks. I feel better.
I
Yes.
feel like I need to go back to like an old alarm clock, like having all these, because I use mine. Mine sits on a charger and it's my alarm clock in the morning. But as you're talking about this, because I have gone to reading before bed, that's my thing. Even if it's a Kobo, I have the like lighting change so it's not affecting that. And I can just roll over and fall asleep. Because I found if I was scrolling, one, I had no concept of time and all of a sudden it's way too late. Or I get in my head about like either what I've got to do at work or how something in the world happens or like this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, I am an anxious person. So giving my brain that stuff before bed does nothing for my sleep. And I'm a terrible sleeper to begin with.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that like, what do you do for an alarm clock?
Me. So
Is it your phone?
Full self-disclosure, it has been for a really long time. I got the Garmin watch, and it will beep an alarm on. Before that used to be a sensory issue. I had tried an Apple Watch like a while ago, quite some time ago, years ago, and I couldn't deal with the sensory overload of having something on my wrist when I sleep. Yeah, but recently, I've had the Garmin help me out, but no, it is so, you know, why wouldn't you use your phone? Is designed to be accommodating, right? So I totally get that, right? And but the alarm with kids, like having a certain alarm and not having kids wake up when you have like a baby in your bedroom. So there's that part of it that had to be adjusted for myself. But no, I go through it too. Like I am in no way an angel in this. People are like, how do you read so many books? And I'll go through phases of really being active on social media and with my friends. And then it's like I disappear and fall off the face of the planet. And I'll be like, nope, we're reading before bed. Like we're not doing anything else. Right. And same thing. With having a Kindle or even having the Libby app on my phone, so I can force myself to read on Libby as opposed to scroll. So like even myself who has like all this knowledge, yeah, because it's fun. It's really fun, like puppies on your feed, good for your mental health. Cats on your feed, good for your mental health. Seeing certain things like yeah, I've had a hyperfixation now for like marathons and running, and I've learned so much. Like it's a hobby I got to pick up in my 30s because like I had access to experts and tips and tricks and a community who's doing it. So, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom out there, right? I get to see what books Sam has read on social.
Or the books you read. You read way bigger books than I do. You and Lindsay actually have very similar reading taste. Into the fairy magical worlds. You like very, very similar books. You guys
give
have
me a
very
good
similar
fairy
taste.
orgy any day, baby. And let's dive on in.
I'm new to the fairy world. But I did. Do you want to see what just? This is a side quest. Do you want to see what came in the mail like yesterday?
That's a dumb question. Yeah, it's always yes.
It's the Throne of Glass box set.
Oh my god!
Because it was on sale, and I was like, I can't get it this cheap anywhere, and they're so pretty. People listening are like, what? But look how big the last two are, and they're supposed to be a tandem read. I don't have as an ADHD girly, I can't. There's no way.
I didn't do the tandem read. I didn't know it was a thing to do the tandem.
I can't do it. I tell you already, I can't do it.
It's okay. So I'm going to tell you, it's completely okay. I loved that series, and I'm jealous you get to experience it for the first time. And I did no tandem read, and it was still fantastic. I don't think it took away from my love of it.
See, she's read all of them, Lindsay. This is how you know you two could be friends.
Jolissa, I think you've inspired me to go and actually like restart my Kindle rather than picking up my phone every night. I'm awful. Okay, first of all, Royal Clash. I'm a level 4500 baby.
Oh my god, I think that's what Daniel's playing. Yeah. And we have conversations probably once every 3 days about like, put down your tablet and look at me.
Oh no, Rob has to
Mike, is he around?
When I'm watching TV, playing Royal Clash on my phone.
Oh my god. But then, it's the same with Daniel. I'm like, this is enough.
When I go to bed, I'm a Reddit person. And rather than watch videos, I go on Reddit.
That's a rabbit hole.
And I just go on like the morbid section on Reddit, which is it's probably not good bedtime reads, but like, God, I love reading like the crime stories and like the history and you know what? Probably great reason why I have terrible cortisol levels according to like my smart.
He just ran by with his tablet. Did you see that? He just ran by with his tablet in the air. Ridiculous.
My husband is so good at like social media use. It's embarrassing. Like if I yeah, it's like next to none. He like didn't have Facebook and Instagram for 7 years.
Wow. Good for
Yeah.
him.
And
Good
he
for
just
him.
like reintroduced and got like to be in touch with friends and family because we live in both places and it can be difficult. But yeah, no, if my screen time could be like his, I'm jealous. I talk about this all the time, so I try to put it into practice, but again, very tricky.
Is he
But
calmer? Like, is he a calmer person, do you think, because of it?
I don't know. I don't know in terms of calm, but like less anxiety than me about certain aspects of the world, 100%. Like, but also it's like really funny because if there's certain trends or like phrases,
He doesn't
Yeah.
know.
he's like a grandpa. Yeah, yeah. No, there's like certain things that are really funny. And then when he found out about, like Skibbity and like stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
this, he was
Yep.
trying to use it correctly about like 3 years after the trend had passed.
No.
Yes, yeah. And like our babysitter was just like, please don't do that. Please don't
Yeah.
do that.
In 2 years, he's gonna start using 6-7, and that's
Yeah.
gonna be mind blowing for him. But
No, he started.
oh,
It's
okay,
done. It's
okay,
done.
he's past it.
But it
Well,
was much later.
we could only remain as optimistic. I think we've all learned something.
Yeah, this is great.
Adults and kids alike, we all need to go outside, touch some more grass together
Yeah.
collectively. Perhaps like fake grass, real grass, I don't care. As long as it's outside grass, it's grass. And just
Get
look
the
out
sun
for
on
the
your
yellow
face.
stained, especially now that the weather's turning, right, baby? Let's go outside.
Yes.
Let's do some more things. But Jalissa, like it's been a pleasure. We have learned so much from you. And I mean, if anyone's looking for someone to talk to when it comes to the kiddos, or just feel reaffirmed that, okay, therapists also doom scroll, I feel better about myself. We appreciate you.
We do. And we do go down Reddit rabbit holes.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. It was wonderful.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. It was really, really fun. Thanks for having me. Especially, I feel really passionate about it.
Tell me
So
everything.